Hey everyone, welcome to the last segment of the DIY photo frame course with the Arduino. Now that we have our images ready and our hardware prepared, it's time to write code on our Arduino and see our photo frame come to fruition. So join me in the last segment where we write our code. I'll be going over it at a high level and we'll be finalizing our project and demoing the DIY photo frame. Okay, so now that we have the images on our SD card, we can just go ahead and detach that SD card from our computer. So you see I had it here attached to my computer. So I'm going to take it out and I'm going to put it in the SD card adapter for this device. So we could just go and put it in this SD card adapter as you see here. And then we can simply place it in the LCD screen. So the LCD screen has a place for that adapter. It's on the side there. You could just go ahead and push it in the side. Let's go ahead and do that. And so we're ready to go in that regard. So the Arduino should have access to those SD files to start showing on the screen. So now just go ahead and plug your Arduino into our computer and let's talk code. Okay, so jumping into the Arduino IDE. So we're just gonna go ahead and make a new sketch. I already did, and we just want to connect to our Arduino at this point. So just make sure you are connected to your Arduino Nano. And I'm just going to paste this code that we have. Now, in order to use this code, you have to install some libraries. So we have the libraries here. You can just go ahead and search each respective library. So the first one we have that we have to install is the SD library. So we can just install SD by Arduino SparkFun. And then we also have the Adafruit GFX library. And these are just to allow us to interact with the screen. So just search Adafruit GFX. You can see I already have it installed. So just make sure you have the libraries installed. And then we just want the ST7735, which is the driver for the display. So make sure we have that as well. So let's just search ST7735 and you see that I have it installed as well. So make sure you have those libraries installed or this code will not work. And then we're just going to upload this code. So before I upload this code, I'll just explain it at a high level. Now I left a bunch of comments in this code to help you understand what is going on, because frankly, if we want to explain each line, that will take hours of time. But let's just go over what this code is doing in terms of the high level functionality. So first of all, we have those imports that we have. We define the pins that we set up in the hardware section. We initialize the TFT object. So this is for the TFT display. And then we define a function here. So this is the BMP draw function. So this will allow us to actually draw on the display, and it'll interpret images in the form of bytes from those SD card images that we uploaded. So it'll do a bunch of processing here essentially to open those files and parse them appropriately and then show color on the screen. So that's the whole form of this function, or the whole purpose of this function is to interpret those BMP files that we have in the SD card and to simply show them on the screen. So you see that it does some processing here in terms of the RGB values and that sort of thing. Once again, we're not going to get too much into this. Just know that that function is for actually coloring the screen, the colors of images, and putting the pixels where they should be. And so we also have a helper function here. So this just allows you to read from 16 bits, read 16 bits from SD. So we use this in our functions as well. So you see we use that when we parse the BMP header. And then just going down, we have read 32 bits. So we also have 32 bits, which we use in this parse BMP header as well. So just to help us and make our code a little cleaner. And then on top of the draw function, so we have the draw, we went over the read 16, the read 32, so just helper functions. We have the setup. So with any Arduino program, a majority of the times you're going to have this setup. So in this setup, we're just initializing some things. We're just initializing the TFT screen. And first we're just filling it with black. And then we are just initializing the SD card. So what we're doing here is we're just preparing the SD card to be read essentially. And the reason we want to do that is because we need files from the SD card. And we also want to do a sanity check here to see all of the files we have on the SD card. So I created this list files function down here that simply loops through the home directory of the SD card and just lists the files just to show you which files you have on the card for a sanity check for debugging. So I have that list files here and it just opens the home directory of the SD card. Okay, and so the last thing we have on top of the setup is the loop. So this is what's going to be continuously running in our program. So in this loop, simply what we are doing is we are just looping through all the files and we are just calling the BMP draw on each of the file names. Remember I mentioned earlier how we want those file names to be integers. That's because in this function, essentially what it's doing, it's looping to 1 to 10. If you have more than 10 images or less, you could just change this variable here and it's just going to display that image every 2.5 seconds. So it's going to shuffle between those images every 2.5 seconds. This is something you can change if you like, and this is just the time delay between showing different images. So that's pretty much what the code is doing at a high level. I leave it up to you for a more in-depth understanding of the parsing of the BMP files and that sort of thing. So once you have this code ready, you have your libraries, you are now ready to upload the code. So very exciting. Let's go ahead and upload this code. And we should start seeing images being shuffled through on our DIY photo frame. So give that a second. Compiling sketch, and we can go ahead and open the serial monitor here. And it should start showing the file system, and then we should see our display start to show images. So it is done uploading, so give that a second. And one thing I realize sometimes with these Arduinos is you do have to unplug and plug them sometimes. So let me actually try uploading again first of all. So if you're having some issues with this, try unplugging and plugging your Arduino or just re-uploading the code. So give that a second. It looks like nothing showed in the serial monitor for some reason. So uploading. Done uploading. So that is weird. So let's unplug and plug it and do that again. Okay, so it's starting setup now. So perfect. So you can go ahead, unplug and plug. It looks like it is working now, and we are seeing our images on our display. So it is displaying 1, 2, 3 as we see here, and it's just going through our images. They look nice, they look crisp. So good job on writing our code. Now in the next segment, we'll just incorporate another hardware component that allows this device to be a standalone device so we don't have to keep it attached to our computer. Okay, so now that our DIY photo frame is up and running and it looks amazing, we can add an optional last touch where you can actually decouple it from your computer using that MB102 power supply we talked about at the beginning in the hardware section, coupled with a battery pack. So you see I have my battery pack attached to my MB102 here. My MB102 is on, so it has an on and off button here. And then this MB102 attaches to the power rails on my breadboard, and you can configure the settings of these MB102s to power the board with 5 volts or 3.3 volts. You see I powered it as 5 volts because the Arduino Nano can take 5 volts in. So you see those pins right there over here are moved to the 5 volts on the right. So make sure this pin header is set to 5 volts. And then you just want to take two jumper wires from the power rails, one from the power. So the power jumper wire goes to the V-in, so the V-in pin of the Arduino, and then the ground from the power rail, so the ground here in blue, goes to the ground pin of the Arduino Nano. So if you have that, you can go ahead and unplug your device from your computer. Okay, so just go ahead and unplug it as you see here. And then I'm just going to turn on my rechargeable battery pack. I don't know why it turned off. And our DIY photo frame should start working without our computer as you see here. So it's completely decoupled, and now you can go around your house and start showing people your DIY photo frame with the Arduino. So congrats, it is fully complete up to this point. So that sums it up for this project. I just want to say it has been a pleasure teaching you this fun and exciting course with the Arduino. We learned a lot in this mini-series about new hardware components, such as the LCD screen with the SD card reader, and how to utilize it with our Arduino. Now you know the basics of dealing with LCD screens, and you created an artistic project with electronics at a very low cost that you can show your friends or family. I hope you learned something new, and I hope you got it working as well. Once again, my name is Mahmoud Shilleh. Thanks for sticking around with me in this course, and I will see you next time.